Attention Notnilc travel tourists. No doubt Easter Island was on our list of places to visit in 2025. But because of this new headline, we're moving Easter Island up. Pack your bags now. We are going to Easter Island. Now, with Notnilc travel tours, we really go, but in our minds, virtually. Like recall, which means you can't tell the difference, which means potentially we really went. Go try to figure that out. Either way, it's so intense, it's no different than actually going. As usual, Notnilc Travel Tours embodies the vision of Bruce Young, who played Jackie in Risky Business, who famously said, "When you put your good money down, you need to get what you want. You don't buy Sony if you want RCA." Notnilc Travel Tours aims to deliver in this regard. Now, I hope you have a big effing suitcase, because this godforsaken place takes forever to get out to. You see that little red dot in the middle of nowhere? About 1,000 miles or more off the coast of Chile? That's where we're going. Easter Island. As a comparison, see up top Ecuador and that dotted line that runs through Ecuador? What's that? Is that the tropical, whatever the tropical, what's a tropic? To the left of Ecuador, that green island, that's the friggin' Galapagos, kind of running through that dotted line, the tropical, whatever. The Galapagos is like local, close by compared to where we're going. That's saying something. Now, as you know, Easter Island is world famous for these gigantic carved heads with out-of-shape bodies. And when we go, we'll be, as Notnilc travel tourists usually are, looking for repeating themes. Number one, indigenous peoples making things or building things that they have no right building with the technology or tools at hand. The other repeating theme that almost has always come up everywhere we went thus far is the indigenous people getting screwed over by the colonial powers. I don't know a damn thing about this godforsaken island, but I bet at some point we'll find that the indigenous peoples got screwed over by something related to a colonial power. You can almost bet the house on that one. Before we go and travel there, I need to briefly address the Mandela-affected community, of which I'm a proud member. But don't embarrass me, Mandela-affected community. Don't start yelling, it's a Mandela effect. Is Matt going to talk about it? It's not a Mandela effect. This one really bugs me. There were never any hats. I'm sure of it. They never had no hats. There was just heads coming out of the ground, like Bob's Big Boy. They never had no hats. Oh, okay, let me get this straight. So you were an expert on Easter Island. Not that you've been there, but you've spent hundreds of hours reviewing the details of all the sculptures. You've spent time in the rare books room of Columbia University. You're an expert. See, you never saw no sculptures with hats, and you're an expert on Easter Island, so it must have changed. No, you can't call this a Mandela effect unless you said, I was there in 1985 for 8 weeks. I was one of the key archaeologists. I've been all over that island on foot. If that's the case, I believe you. Other than that, zip it. Okay, let's see what prompted us to move up our Notnilc travel tourist destination to today. New evidence upends contentious Easter Island theory, scientists say. Oh, if scientists say it, it must be correct. Rapa Nui, also known as Easter Island, never experienced a ruinous population collapse, according to an analysis of ancient DNA from 15 former inhabitants of the remote island. So they're digging up bodies? I guess. They didn't find these mother effers in the slums of Santiago. I guess they dug up bodies on Easter Island. Okay, so they took a DNA sample. How's that going to tell you about what happened to an entire population? I'm no exobiologist from Harvard, but this don't make no sense. Matt, just read and see if it explains. The analysis also suggested that inhabitants of the island, which lies about 2,300 miles, I said 1,000, 2,300 miles from the South American mainland, reached the Americas in the 1300s, long before Christopher Columbus's 1492 landing. Well, first of all, everybody knows that second part is completely made up. That whole Christopher Columbus founded America 1490. It's accepted now that's just completely false and made up, and the Vikings had been landing on the Americas for hundreds of years. So what is this even in here? They reached the Americas? See, the Notnilc always has to confuse. Always a confusion of history. See, your heritage isn't Cherokee Indian. If we trace the DNA, it's these MRFers that landed on the Americas from the Easter Island. And it's all confused and effed up as usual. Why would they even set out off in their little sailboats? Would they carve stone sailboats with giant heads? Is it, we're going to head north and try to find the Americas? It's only 4,000 miles north. That's okay. We packed mangoes. This is ridiculous. Settled by Polynesian seafarers 800 years ago, Rapa Nui, today part of Chile, has hundreds of monumental stone heads that echo of the past. The island has long been a place of intrigue. Major Pootie Tang Award. Well, yeah, everybody knows this. First graders know this. But what does this mean? Settled by Polynesian seafarers. Could you be a little bit more specific? So the people that were living in Tahiti and Paradise and all those islands and all the mangoes and unlimited bananas, and it was Gilligan's Island on steroids, but with a million gingers, they said, this place sucks. I want to go find some place in the middle of fucking nowhere. I'm just going to set out. Why would they even get in their boats? This doesn't make any sense. And they just stumbled upon Easter Island. Look, I haven't seen many pictures of it. I ain't seen no trees. I ain't seen no wheat fields. This is ridiculous. Some experts, such as geographer Jared Diamond in his 2005 book Collapse, I thought that was about the stock market, used Easter Island as a cautionary tale of how the exploitation of limited resources can result in catastrophic population decline, ecological devastation, and the destruction of a society through infighting. Hey, Jared, where'd you take your book for publishing? Al Gore? I mean, come on, he'd love this topic. But that theory remains contentious, and other archaeological evidence suggests that Rapa Nui was home to a small but sustainable society. Well, then what the F happened to him? I'll stick with Jared's theory until you can give me something different. The new analysis marks the first time scientists have used ancient DNA to address the question of whether Easter Island saw a self-inflicted societal collapse, helping to shed light on its mysterious past. All right, guys, remember my cousin Vinny, he put the hands out? Let me tell you what's going on here. Obviously, the population collapsed. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out because you go out there and ain't nobody there. There ain't nobody running around in a loincloth. There's nobody there. Of course, there's a population collapse because the stones and the carvings didn't make themselves. Okay, these people are making $500,000, $700,000, $800,000 coming up with theories that we can discern on the fly. Of course, there's a population collapse. You want to know my theory? McDonald's. You can't say for sure that Ray Kroc didn't visit the place. I say McDonald's. Easter Island genomes to investigate Rapa Nui's. I'm not calling it Rapa Nui no more. It's Easter Island. Philly, it's $50. To investigate its history further, researchers sequenced the genomes of 15 former residents who lived on the island during the past 400 years. The remains are stored at the Museum de Homeboy, the Museum of Mankind in Paris, which is part of the French National Museum of Natural History. Didn't you see Poltergeist? You dug up the bodies from Easter Island and you pulled them back to Paris. You shove them down in those catacombs with all the other skulls and bones. You can't move those bodies. Didn't you see Poltergeist? This is very dangerous. The researchers found no evidence of a genetic bottleneck corresponding to a steep drop in population, according to the study that published Wednesday in the Scientific Journal of Nature. Well, Scientific Journal of Nature, I wouldn't give a squirt of piss for your ass right now. You're in no way explaining how a DNA test can show what happened to an entire population. I'm no exobiologist from Yale, again, but you take DNA from one freaking body, something shoved in the catacombs of Paris. How is that going to tell you about what happened to an entire population over time? I guess I'm just missing something. Instead, the island was home to a small population that steadily increased in size until the 1860s, the analysis suggested. There's bot writing again. Bot, you put that part first. The analysis suggested that the island was home to, you don't put it at the end, oh, these bots. I won't do that again, I'm sorry. At this point, the study noted, oh no, slave raiders from Peru forcibly removed 1/3 of the island's population. Now that's from the Bible. Lucifer and the third fell from heaven. They're mixing the bots all mixed up. That's from the Bible. So give me a break. Slave raiders from Peru. So let me get this straight. You got this whole gigantic continent. You got Chile, you got Peru, you got all this landmass, you got hundreds of millions of these mother effers running around. You got to go 2,500 miles out. There's this island. We can get them for slaves. Well, we'll never find the fucking island. This is ridiculous, folks. There is, quote, There is definitely not a strong population collapse, like it has been argued. A population collapse where 80% of the population or 90% of the population died. No, 100%. There ain't nobody there. There's nothing there, Lieutenant. Said study co-author J. Victor Moreno Mayar. There's two reasons not to trust this guy. He's got the the L. Frank Baum and the F. Scott Fitzgerald. He's got that initial out front. You never trust those people. L. Frank Baum, J. Victor Moreno Mayar, and he's got the three names. Isn't Trump's the second time it almost happened to Trump? It's got the three names again. The Notnilc loves putting in the three names. Never trust him. An assistant professor of geogenetics at the University of Copenhagen's Globe Institute in Denmark. That major sounds made up. Assistant professor of geogenetics. I went to a big university for 4 years. I looked over all the majors. I never seen no geogenetics. I think it's made up. I think he made up his own degree. I'm not even joking. The genomes also revealed that the Easter Islanders had exchanged genes with a Native American population. Guys, they mean exchange genes with people that live in Chile and Peru and on the mainland of South America. I was confused earlier. I thought they go up north to mate with the Cherokee or something. No, it's just to get to the South American mainland, suggesting that the inhabitants crossed the ocean to South America somewhere between 1250 and 1430. Ahead of Columbus's arrival in the Americas and well before Europeans reached Rapa Nui or Easter Island in 1722. So here's what's going on, guys. Put your hands out. Identical. These mother effers on Easter Island, they somehow made their way 2,000 or more mile to the mainland in Chile to mate with them. You know how ugly the women must have been on Easter Island for these mother effers to say, we got to leave the island. We're gonna head off by sea over 2,000 miles with nothing but a boat and a pile of mangoes to try to find women on the mainland. Do you know how desperate for sex they must have been to leave the island? It's not like it's across a river. It's basically like heading out from California to Hawaii. And they don't know what's out there. They didn't get no report from the internet that they're going to eventually run into some landmass called South America. Again, this is ridiculous. Here's a one-page summary of the summary if you're not following this. Basically, according to scientists, the DNA study and the gene study of those that died on Easter Island showed genes from the mainland. At some point, they had traveled to the mainland. That even further confirms my theory. They brought something back from the mainland. Oh, it was diseases. It was the cold and flu virus. It was things that they weren't used to dealing with on the island. Yes, that's true. Or McDonald's, like I said earlier. This is the last segment of this article. I'll read, quote, "We know that the original Polynesian voyagers who discovered and settled Easter Island at least 800 years ago were among the greatest navigators and voyagers in the world," she said in a statement. How do you know that? How would you know that? Look, I don't want to spend 50 more hours investigating this, but this article doesn't say anything about the natives of Easter Island being linked to Tahiti or specifically where they came from in what they call Polynesia. It just talks about Polynesian voyagers. Well, what does that mean? I mean, you're writing the article that's picked up by the Ministry of Information and Thomson Reuters and sent all over the world as part of your false narrative. All it says is Polynesian voyagers, Polynesian voyagers. What the hell does that mean? Are they from Tahiti? I keep saying that because I don't know no other part of Polynesia. I don't think Hawaii's part of Polynesia, but I ain't no expert on this subject. It's a big waste of our time if it wasn't for a few laughs. Quote, "Their ancestors had spent at least 3,000 years living in an oceanic environment." How do they know? It's just the people buy this. The experts will say these sorts of things so they can continue to get whacked off in a coat closet. There's no possible way they could know this. They sailed eastward across thousands of kilometers of open seas and open ocean and found almost all habitable islands across the vast Pacific. Oh, this explains how they put the broke asses on Hawaii, how they put the broke asses on the Northern Mariana Islands, which is in Saipan, which is actually a U.S. protectorate, and Guam. And oh, this explains how these indigenous poor devils found all these islands. And you just get some professor to write that, oh, they Polynesian voyagers were experts. And so you can continue to get whacked off in the coat closet. Give me a break. So as usual, the only thing we have to go on as to what is going on here, what happened is the reality rules that have almost never been broken, like the rule of opposites. So if you're on your forklift, you want to take a quick look at this. See, I have two choices here. I can trust the experts from Oxford, Cambridge, and the Ivy League, or I could apply the rule of opposites. The experts are always wrong about matters of importance, and then I go search the internet for the craziest, out there, weirdest theory of all time. And then I found it here, and then to me, this is closer to the truth. So the Easter Island heads pop up down there 2,000 miles off Chile, and then you draw a line through the, oh no, the flat turf, the splatters are going to be all upset because this represents Baal. The whole body, they constructed the whole body through the inner earth. That's where King Kong and Godzilla hang out. If you've seen the new movies with Mothra, there's a whole inner earth, and then Stonehenge is just the tips of the toes, the fingernails. See, this, I'm not saying this is correct, but if I had to bet, I would put my bet here over the experts. No doubt about that. Guys, let me put this picture up for just 2 minutes while I summarize that horrible mess of an article we wasted so much time on. Thank God there were a few laughs. You know what that article did? Absolutely nothing but confuse. It said, up until now, and for many decades, the experts believed that there was a rapid population die-off based on overutilization of resources and all the things Al Gore would be concerned with. And it's like, oh, really? That was the theory? Like any first grader could come up with that. Oh, gee, thanks a lot. Now they're saying, we're not so sure about those theories about a rapid population die-off. Well, why aren't you so sure? It didn't say anything. All it said was we found DNA that was associated with the mainland. It says we dug up these mother effers and they had DNA from Chileans and Peruvians and whatever, mainlanders from South. Well, what does that have to do with anything? How does that dispel the old theories about the rapid population die-off? It said nothing about that. Bot, you should be ashamed of yourself. What a waste of time. Anybody's yelling at me, I can hear you. Matt, it's first grade tactic. It's blocking and tackling. It's always just simple confusion. That's all it cares about, and that's what it accomplished. Even with your ilk. Matt, I'm a Notnilc travel tourist. I'm Joe. You know me. Look at some of these pictures. Where are we going to eat? It got no restaurants. It got no restaurant row. Where are we going to stay? I don't think it got no Four Seasons or Ritz-Carlton. Where are we going to eat and stay? It's a rustic tour, this one, Joe. It's not for everyone. We're bringing tents. We're packing sandwiches. No, it ain't got no Best Western chain or Motel 6s or Comfort Inns and Suites. It's a rustic trip. It's not for everybody. Okay, stay home then. Right, I'm getting emails. Some of you are asking about price. Well, it's always $666. I don't have to mention that. But the Chilean government is actually willing to knock our price down in half. If anybody wants to sign up for the day to work for the Chilean government, you see these statues? You see these heads? Each of them are covered with about 1,000 years of bird poop. The Chilean government wants volunteers, basically they'll pay for half your trip, to put those little wire things and little devices at the top of the head so the birds don't land and poop on the heads. I don't know. They'll provide them when we get there. If those that want to work for the Chilean government for at least one day, the price goes down to $333. The bird poop on the heads is a big problem. Look at this. See, is this bird poop or is it weathering? Is it some sort of weathering? See, we don't know. Either way, the Chilean government feels if the devices of wire just are installed on top of the heads and it keeps the birds off, it can only be a good thing. Matt, this is broken down into nonsense. See, it wavers from legitimate reality discussions to nonsense, and it will go back to a very interesting and legitimate reality discussion about what all of reality does in terms of playing this sort of trick, in terms of following its breadcrumbs. I'm going to weave in the nonsense. Some people like it. I like to deliver the nonsense. Sorry, but you can't just tune out now thinking the rest of this is going to be nonsense. I can flip back to a serious conversation at any time. Matt, you say you're down with the Mandela effect community, but you ain't one of us. You see that statue winning from the end? You see that hat? That was never there before, dude. It's a Mandela effect. And you say you're one of us. You're Interview with a Vampire Review. I am one of you, but you can't say that. Unless you're on some special team that cataloged every single statue, or you set foot on the island, or you have worked in some aspect to catalog and document every single statue with a name and a code number, the way Ellie Arroway in Contact was trying to catalog all the SETI events in the sky. You can't say it wasn't there. So let me ask you, how you know these hats weren't there? Oh, I had National Geographic magazines in the 80s, and I've never seen these. You've only seen a tiny portion. This sort of Mandela effect claim drives me crazy. People have, you know what? If your dog changes color from white to black, I can't argue with you. I'll believe you. But don't make, you've never set foot on the island. You've never looked at every single documentation on every single statue. You've seen some magazines and something, but it's a change in reality. I won't mention it again, but stop it. Just stop it. Oh no, look what I found. General Pinochet poses with a young Rapa Nui girl. Look at the look on his face. You think he's just going to walk away from her after this picture's done being taken? Look at the look. It's like Thulsa Doom in Conan, played by James Earl Jones. Come to me, my child. I hear you're a Rapa Nui native. Would you like a key to my hotel room? Where's his hand right now? Oh, another Notnilc minion, a real creep that we all forgot about. General Pinochet, as bad as any of them. Ugh. Guys, I'm still collecting information as we do this Notnilc travel tours together. But I thought Easter Island, I'm sure a lot of you thought, was just like abandoned, empty for hundreds of years. Apparently, there's always been a native population. That's what it seems via the research I've been doing. And there's, today there's lots of people that live, not lots, but there's people that live on the island. But here comes, looks, this repeating theme. It's the colonial fuckover of the natives. This is one of the earliest drawings of the colonial powers landing, posing by the statue. They didn't got no pictures. They didn't got no flash photography back then. This is how they documented with the natives. Of course, here it comes, the colonial power fuckover of the indigenous. It happens every single time. See, look at the bird poop on the top of the heads. It's a gigantic problem, folks. It's killing their tourism. The inhabitants of Easter Island created a thriving and industrious culture, as evidenced by the island's numerous enormous stone Moai, M-O-A-I, in the name of the stone carvings and heads and other artifacts. But land clearing for cultivation and the introduction of the Polynesian rat led to gradual deforestation. By the time the European arrived in 1722, the island's population was estimated to only be 2,000 to 3,000. European disease. Here's the European fuckover. Here it comes. European diseases, Peruvian slave raiding expeditions in the 1860s, and emigration to other islands such as Tahiti further depleted the population, reducing it to a low of only 111 poor devils left in 1877. That's less than the California condor. So let me get this straight. We see all these pictures today of Easter Island, and we don't see many trees. There are trees in some pictures, but 90 to 95%, like the Galapagos grasslands, things like this. But you say deforestation was caused by the indigenous people who would have been, they would have been seafaring, they would have fished, they would have lived very close to the ocean, because that's where the food supply would have come from. And you think they deforested their own place when there really isn't any trees today. And also, what also led to the deforestation was did you say Polynesian rat? I don't know about your rats. My rats go right for the oaks, the red oaks, the black oaks, the pin oaks. These oaks can't survive much longer with these rats. What? Rats don't gnaw at the bottom of trees? This is an insult to our intelligence. And of course, here it is again, talking about the Peruvian slave raiders in the 1860s. Well, there's millions of people on the South American continent. Again, if you're going to take slaves, wouldn't you have gone up to Brazil or down Chile or Argentina? You're going to go out over 2,000 miles into the ocean, of which you have a good chance of not being able to even find this island. I mean, how would they even know how to navigate it? And they're going to have the grand old idea to take their slaves. I mean, look, I'm just saying it's part of a script. I'm not saying that there wasn't slaves taken from Easter Island. I'm just saying notice the repeating themes. I'm saying it's unlikely it would have ever happened in a real world, yet it did happen. The repeating theme is yes, the indigenous always gets screwed over by anything you would call the colonial power. I'm sure that Peruvian slave raiders, they're on their own. There was no influence from the French. Of course, it's always an influence from the European colonial powers. So I'm just saying it's just like almost impossible in a real world, yet the fake world always presents the same scripts. I'm sure the natives of Easter Island were screwed over. They probably were taken as slaves. Just saying, the whole thing doesn't make any sense unless we live in a reality script, of which we do. And the last part here, as usual, doesn't make any sense, but we're the only ones, the only group in the world that question this nonsense. So let me get this straight. When it was down to only 111 poor devils left, one of the reasons the populations got so low, in addition to the Polynesian rat and all this stuff, it says emigration to other islands such as Tahiti. Let me read that again. Emigration to other islands such as Tahiti. So they just decided to go to Tahiti and other islands. Well, how would they possibly do that? How would they, let's just say it's 1860. How would they get there? They got some navy I don't know about. How would they even know how to navigate to Tahiti? Why would Tahiti take them in? Our brothers are starving on the Easter Island. Our brothers are 1,500 miles away. For those of you that are really up on geography, Tahiti and these Polynesian islands are what you would call far, very far from Easter Island. It's literally in the middle of nowhere. Why would Tahiti even take them in? If they came, let's say they came in on their ships, they had ships, the Tahitians would pop out with their bows and arrows and their blow dart guns and take them out as they took the beaches. Who are these sons of bitches landing? They would think it's an invasion force. But Matt, the Eastern Islanders that arrived at that island 800 years before were from Tahiti and those other Polynesian islands. Wikipedia itself says, remember, the Polynesian seafarers. So, okay, they're going to have all the old star charts as to how to get back. They can try to get back like Commander Adama in Battlestar Galactica. They somehow, do they have the means to get back? Do they have the ships? Remember about the deforestation, right? They ain't got no trees for the ships. Did they somehow find a way to put a note in a bottle and kind of float that bottle across the ocean? And the Tahitian king got it, and he says, our brothers and sisters in Easter Island need our help. We're going to send our fleet. As usual, all of it ridiculous. Okay, let's look for repeating themes in the statues. The Moai are monolithic human figures carved by the Rapa Nui people on Rapa Nui Easter Island in eastern Polynesia between the years 1250 and 1500. Identical. They carved them 1250 to 1500. Nearly half are still at blah, 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 the main Moai quarry, but hundreds were transported from there and set on stone platforms called ahu around the island's perimeter. Okay, here's a major element of the repeating reality script of a fake world. All the blocks in the stone always has to come from far away. Not just on Easter Island, the plateau at Giza, everywhere almost there's a monolithic site. With a few exceptions, they had to bring the shit in from far away. When it happens this much, sorry, repeating reality script, fake world. Okay, there are Indian temples where the temple is carved down into the rock itself. That's almost impossible to do, but at least the rock was there. They just carved it from top down. Okay, the rock was there at least. But whether it be the Great Pyramid, it always had to come from afar. Here we go again with the same damn script. Transportation. Since the island was largely treeless, there we go again. By the time the Europeans first visited, the movement of the statues was a mystery for a long time, as it usually is, as it always is. Study of fossil pollen and charcoal traces found in sediment cores collected in the island's three main crater lakes suggested that forests that originally covered the island were gradually logged. Oh, the big loggers of Easter Island between 800 and 1200. Clear these fucking forests. Aren't you seafaring folk that just fish the shores and fish the beaches and that's where your food? Let's clear this shit out. But we don't have the means to do that. We'll bring out the rats. The Polynesian rat'll get it done. That's what it says. And the island was being colonized by settlers from eastern Polynesia. Then again, in the decades oh my God, could this get stupider? It is not exactly known how the Moai were moved across the island. That's the same script as usual. We don't know how these blocks were moved to the Giza Plateau every single time. There are numerous studies and theories discussing the topic, as there always is. Earlier researchers assumed that the process of moving these Moai required human energy, really? Ropes and possibly wooden sledges or sleds or rollers, as well as leveled tracks across the island. The Easter Island roads. Oh, here we go again. What sort of mechanical means did they have? Oh, man, with a lever, you can actually lift a big stone if you had a piece of wood long enough. Oh, just thinking in those pedestrian toy box means. Yeah, that's always the way to figure out how this reality works. Just proving to me that a block could be moved with a piece of wood. Yeah, that's exactly how you get to the bottom as to what this reality is all about. Another theory suggests that the Moai were placed on top of logs and were rolled to their destinations. Oh my God. If that theory is correct, it would take 50 to 150 people to move the Moai. The most recent study demonstrates from the evidence in an archaeological record that the statues were harnessed with ropes and donkeys and mules and jackasses and burros from two sides and made to, quote, walk by tilting them from side to side while pulling forward in a vertical way with jackasses, mules, donkeys, and burros. From Wikipedia, this is a depiction or a painting as to what the Easter Island natives looked like or would have been like around the time when all of these stone carvings took place. Let's role play this as we typically do, exposing reality's underbelly as comical every time we do a role play. So this guy, let's call him Mogwai from what movie's that? Mogwai, The Last Mohican. This is Mogwai from The Last Mohican. He wanted that girl, and she just ended up saying "fuck this" and just jumped off the cliff. I'd rather jump off a cliff than be with you, Mogwai. She jumped. Remember that? Last of Mohicans. That's a Kentucky. That's a good movie, man. That Daniel Day-Lewis plays different characters every time. He's a real actor. Molly Ringwald plays herself in every single thing I've ever seen. And Pretty in Pink sucked the other night. Mogwai here says, "Everybody up! All young people in the village between 10 and 40 years old. Everybody up! Everybody! 4:30, time for milking. 4:30, everybody up. Why we got to get up? I was just going to fish today. We've got, see, the Moai are the ancestors, according to Wikipedia, the ancient ancestors of these people. We got to roll great-grandpa Fred. Of course, the quarry site is miles and miles away. The quarry site is never close to where they're going to eventually position great-grandpa Fred. We got to roll. We got to use the ropes and we don't have no donkeys and horses and jackasses and burros here. We, as Wikipedia says, we're going to use the ropes, and I got a new technique. I'm Mogwai. I'm Kurt. We're just going to walk it. Everybody heave left. I'm tired. Heave right across. It would be the ground would be impossible to move across. It would be wet. It would be soft. This is ridiculous. Well, you tell us what happened, genius. You know what my best answer is at this point? Reality itself sees to this. Keep falling for the trick. Keep spending decades trying to figure out how this was pulled off or how this Mogwai group moved their blocks into place and how this was built. Keep trying to figure out. Or step back to 10,000 feet, look down and say, all of reality is a trick. If something's heavy and it's a stone and it weighs multiple tons, that doesn't necessarily mean it avoids the trick. That's small thinking. I might be wrong, but at least think big. It potentially, all of this monolithic bullshit could be part of the reality trick itself. That's as good of an explanation as any. Instead of getting back in the weeds and say, Matt, if you give me a piece of wood long enough, I can move a block. That is small thinking, and that's what the Notnilc wants, even if I'm wrong. Now say goodbye to me, and say goodbye, more importantly, to Mogwai. I have to come back again. The video ended exactly at 33 minutes, 33.00, and without me looking at the time. I'm not changing it. I had to come back and add this, though. And if there's comments about it, I knew you were a Freemason. I look forward to removing you from the channel. Any comments about the timestamps? I'm not changing it.